Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, you know my position on this, and I've been contemplating this as an attorney, and especially having the privilege to have practiced with some of the finest attorneys that I'm looking over at on the other side of the aisle. Grew up with in the halls of the courtrooms in Fairfax. Learned how to become a trial lawyer with many of them. Had the honor of sitting next to and co-counseling with one of the finest, fightingest lawyers that Richmond has ever seen.
Thank you.
Not you, Senator McDougal. And each time what we were doing was we were standing up against government, trying to deprive someone of their liberty who had been charged with a crime. You know, lawyers, we all, especially trial lawyers, criminal defense lawyers, we all are made fun of. There are lots of jokes, I know a few, about our profession. But I'm reminded of when William Shakespeare said in King Richard III, when Richard was going to take over the government and control the will of the people, the first thing he said is, the first thing we do is get rid of all the lawyers first. That's because lawyers stand between government and the people. I've known every single lawyer over there who I've practiced with since I was a lawyer my very first day, my very first year. Respected their respect of the law, their zeal in which they represent their clients, the victories that they got. And the victories they got, which was more for preservation of due process, preservation of those sacred rights, the 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment. Making sure that it always remained the burden of the government to prove guilt before any liberty interest was deprived. You know, when we fast forward today, you know, what I hear, not from necessarily my friends on the other side of the aisle here in this chamber, but I do hear a lot of distrust of the police from Democrats and liberals, and I mean even the top prosecutor in Baltimore has said some things that demonstrate a general distrust of the police and how they handle matters and how they treat their citizens. We've heard a congresswoman from New York who has some renown now to say that there were no police officers here at the Second Amendment rally because all the police officers secretly support gun owners. But if you have a rally for something that may be considered in the leftist agenda, boy, there's all those police out there harassing those people that just come to express their views. And so I wonder, because I think even our founding fathers told us to have a healthy distrust of government, that those on the other side of the aisle who have professed to have this distrust of the government and especially the police and exercising their authority, nevertheless, with this piece of legislation, want to give those police officers more power. More power, less in line with the Constitution, more opportunity for abuse. And I know of not one sheriff, chief of police in my district, nor have I seen any fraternal order of the police position come out. I've not seen anybody say, we want this, who's in law enforcement. We need this tool in the toolbox to do our job. Have not heard one thing. We're about to give them an authority that they do not want. And I was thinking last night, Mr. President, as I was pondering this, how serious a step Virginia was about to take. And I wondered to myself, what would have happened if this law had been put in place in the Commonwealth of Virginia during the 1950s and the 1960s? How would it have been used? How would it have been mistreated? What horrible things could have resulted from it? And so for that, I'm glad. And so if it was bad then, if you use it in comparison, how is it not bad now? It is bad. I represent people all across this Commonwealth who are charged with crimes. The potential for misuse of this exists, and it will exist in our minority communities. It will exist in those levels of poverty and below who don't have the ability to have an attorney, who may not be savvy enough to understand what's going on right now, who may not even know why they're at my door and what they're about to do in order to protect themselves. You know, I was thinking again last night, Mr. President, I had a case like this. A gentleman had gotten convicted of some nonviolent felonies, went to jail. He was my client. And so then when he got out of jail, his wife determined that she did not want to be married to him anymore. They had children. So with no place to live and being kicked out of the house, he went to his dad's house, was living in the basement. Mr. President, she was able to then go and convince a police officer that he had surrounded himself, he was unstable, had surrounded himself with many weapons capable of mass destruction, and that he was a safety risk to himself and others. She had convinced him just on the story of herself. She'd even said he stole her car, which was his car, and was given back to him when he got out. And that police authority went and got a search warrant based on just that unsupported fact. They brought the SWAT in. They raided his dad's house, rousted him out of bed late at night, took him in. And you know what they found, Mr. President? They found an old antique gun and a bag of bullets that didn't even match the gun. And they charged him with being in possession of a firearm after being a convicted felon and possession of ammunition. They didn't find all the mass weapons of destruction that she had claimed. They didn't find anything. But when they found those two things, and by the way, they're in a locked drawer of which he did not have a key to, he was then arrested. Because he was on probation, he was then deprived of his liberty for months until a preliminary hearing, when that person was subject to my cross-examination. The prosecutor looked at me. I looked at him and he said, I'm not going to certify this upstairs. And he was finally free. But he had lost a liberty he didn't deserve to lose, nor had committed a crime that he was accused of, nor was he a threat to himself or others. He was happy to be out, Mr. President, happy to be free. But someone with an agenda, because it makes custody and child support a heck of a lot easier, makes divorce a heck of a lot easier, if he's stuck in prison. And you know what? If it was that easy to happen, then it's this easy to happen with this bill in the future. You know, we had a discussion that I enjoyed with Senator Deeds yesterday. The many questions. I don't get to talk to him that much in the hallway. I was really happy to have that conversation with my friend. But he brought up something about this is different than a TDO. But he reminded me last night, and my good friend, the senator from Spotsylvania, demonstrated and showed me this brilliant man right to my left who knows so much about the code, how it applies at the ground level, is that in the magistrate's handbook, Virginia Magistrate's Handbook, that which magistrates go by, said very simply the purpose of a temporary detention order is to get that person that needs help because it's a mental stability issue, harms himself, may harm others, can't take care of himself. The number one goal of a TDO, temporary detention or an emergency custody order, the ECOs we call them too, is to get them in front of a mental health professional immediately. Get them evaluated, get them help. This bill does none of that. This bill says, we're here for your firearm. And oh, by the way, we're not going to put you in front of a mental health professional like a TDO would. We're going to have you wait up to 2 weeks to go see a judge. I mean, we're fundamentally not addressing the issue you want to address, which then leaves all of us, you know, I trust you guys when we have honest and open discussions, but it makes me think that the object of this bill isn't that help which that person should get, but rather it's removing another gun and another gun and another gun. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't stand here just because I'm a true believer in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution, because you know I am. I stand here today as a professional where God gave me the opportunity to be a trial lawyer for the last 25 years, where I could make a difference in the world by changing the lives of the people I represent. And that's what I've carried forward. Also understanding that we must preserve and protect their rights to freedom and against the government intrusion. I can't believe we're doing this. And it's really not about the Second Amendment when I make this argument to you today. It's about freedom and liberty and justice as it was intended to be. By not giving those that maybe some in your side of the aisle distrust more power that they don't even want. Today, when you vote, if it passes, we have made a mistake that hopefully we'll be able to recover from, but I fear we will not. And I thank you, Mr. President.